On December 5th, 1872, the crew of a British merchant ship named De Gratia noticed something unusual on the horizon. Another vessel was drifting slowly across the Atlantic Ocean, moving in an uncertain and almost unnatural way. Its sails were partly damaged, its course seemed uncontrolled, and although the ship was clearly still afloat, no one could be seen on deck. Captain David Morehouse studied the distant vessel through his telescope.
That ship is not sailing properly.
Could she be damaged? Perhaps. But there should be someone on deck.
As the De Gratia moved closer, the men recognized the ship. It was the Mary Celeste, an American merchant brig that had left New York almost a month earlier. Captain Morehouse knew her commander, Captain Benjamin Briggs, and he knew that Briggs was an experienced and careful sailor. The silence surrounding the Mary Celeste made no sense. Morehouse ordered a small boarding party to investigate.
Take the boat. Search the vessel carefully.
The men crossed the rough water in a small boat and climbed onto the abandoned vessel. The moment they stepped onto the deck, they realized that something was terribly wrong. There was no greeting from the crew, no orders from the captain, no sound except the wind moving through the ropes and the waves striking the hull.
Hello? Is anyone aboard?
Quiet. Too quiet.
There's nobody on the watch. It's like they just vanished.
There was no answer. The men searched the deck, then moved carefully below. The crew's personal belongings were still there. Clothing, boots, pipes, and other possessions had been left behind. Food and fresh water remained on the ship. The cargo was almost completely intact, and valuable objects had not been stolen. There was no blood, no evidence of a violent struggle, no sign that pirates had attacked. It appeared as though the captain, his family, and the entire crew had simply vanished.
Where is everyone? 1 minute they were here. The next.
The lifeboat is gone. Something must have happened here.
The last entry in the ship's log had been written on November 25th, 10 days before the Mary Celeste was discovered. According to the log, the ship had been sailing near the Azores Islands. There was no warning, no mention of disaster, and no final message explaining why everyone had abandoned the vessel. To understand the mystery, investigators had to return to the beginning of the voyage. The Mary Celeste had departed from New York Harbor on November 7, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. In her cargo hold were more than 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. The cargo was valuable, but it was also highly flammable. Captain Benjamin Briggs was in command. He was a respected sailor with many years of experience at sea. He was known as a calm, responsible, and deeply religious man. He had carefully selected 7 crew members for the voyage and trusted them completely. Traveling with him were his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. As the ship left New York, there was no reason to expect anything unusual. It was supposed to be a routine journey across the Atlantic. One evening, Sarah stood beside her husband and looked out over the sea.
How long do you think the crossing will take?
If the wind remains favorable, we should reach Italy in a few weeks.
Sophia will be happy to see land again.
We all will.
Those simple words would become haunting in the years that followed, because none of them ever reached Italy. When the Mary Celeste was examined after its discovery, investigators found that the ship itself was still capable of sailing. There was some water in the lower part of the vessel, but not enough to place it in immediate danger. Some equipment had been damaged, and one of the pumps may not have been working correctly, but the ship was not sinking. This created the central question of the mystery. Why would an experienced captain order everyone to abandon a seaworthy vessel in the middle of the Atlantic? Theories appeared almost immediately. Some people believed pirates had attacked the Mary Celeste, but the cargo and valuables were still there. Pirates would have taken anything they could sell. Others suspected mutiny. Perhaps the crew had turned against Captain Briggs, killed him and his family, and escaped in the lifeboat. But there were no signs of violence, and Briggs had chosen his crew carefully. Nothing suggested that the men had a reason to rebel. Another theory involved Captain Morehouse and the crew of the De Gratia. Because they received payment for recovering the abandoned ship, some investigators wondered whether they had somehow been involved in the disappearance. During the inquiry, an official questioned Morehouse.
You knew Captain Briggs, did you not? Yes, I considered him a friend. And you expect us to believe that you simply found his ship drifting in the ocean? That is exactly what happened.
The investigation found no proof that Morehouse or his men had harmed anyone, but suspicion continued to follow them. The most convincing explanation involved the cargo of industrial alcohol. When the barrels were later inspected, several were found to be empty. The alcohol may have leaked and produced powerful fumes inside the cargo hold. Perhaps Captain Briggs smelled the fumes or heard a frightening sound below deck. He may have believed that the ship was about to explode. Imagine the scene!
Captain, there is a strong smell coming from the hold.
Alcohol?
Yes, sir. The fumes are spreading. Could the cargo explode?
Prepare the lifeboat. We leave the ship until the danger has passed.
It is possible that Briggs never intended to abandon the Mary Celeste permanently. He may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat and kept it connected to the ship by a long rope. From a safe distance, they could wait and return once they believed the danger was over. But the Atlantic is unpredictable. A sudden gust of wind, a large wave, or the failure of the rope could have separated the small lifeboat from the larger ship. The ship, carried by the wind, would have continued across the ocean without them. The lifeboat, now alone in rough water, would have had little chance of survival. This theory explains why the Mary Celeste remained seaworthy, why the lifeboat was missing, and why everyone left behind their belongings. They may have believed they would return within minutes. But there is no way to know whether this is what truly happened. Other explanations have included a sudden waterspout, a massive wave, mechanical failure, or panic over how much water had entered the ship. Over time, the mystery inspired far stranger stories: sea monsters, ghosts, and supernatural forces. Some accounts even claimed that warm food was left on the table, although those details were never firmly established. The real story needs no invention. The Mary Celeste was found drifting in the Atlantic. Her cargo was still aboard. The lifeboat was gone. And Captain Briggs, his wife Sarah, young Sophia, and the 7 crewmen were never seen again. More than 150 years later, we still do not know what happened. Perhaps leaking alcohol, damaged equipment, and rough weather convinced Briggs to order a temporary evacuation. Perhaps the lifeboat was connected to the ship until a wave or sudden gust broke the line. Or perhaps the final piece of evidence disappeared beneath the Atlantic forever. That is what makes the Mary Celeste so disturbing. The ship survived. The cargo survived. Their belongings survived. Only the people disappeared. Imagine standing on that empty deck, calling into the fog, "Is anyone here?" and hearing nothing but the ocean. What do you think happened? Subscribe to the Mystery Archive for more true mysteries, because some stories are discovered, others remain lost forever.